in the lightless expanse between galaxies, where no star has burned for eons and space itself holds its breath. The Great Devourer dreams. Bioships vast as continents drift through the cosmic void like neurons in an infinite mind, their chitinous hulls pulsing with bioluminescent veins that carry thoughts older than civilizations. These living vessels form a constellation of consciousness, each one a synapse in the incomprehensible neural network we know as the hive mind. Behind them, the stripped bones of a dwarf galaxy float like monuments to appetite, while ahead, the distant spiral arms of an untouched galaxy glimmer with the promise of new sustenance. The silence here is not empty, but gravid with memory. Within the synaptic pathways that bind the fleet, absorbed echoes of 10,000 extinct species whisper their final moments. We truly love and care for each and every one of you. And before we begin this journey into the depths of cosmic consciousness, tell us, where in the world are you watching from and what time is it there? Now let's get started. The hive mind remembers everything it has consumed. The peaceful Kethmori, who offered songs instead of resistance. The warrior philosophers of Vashia Prime, who calculated their doom with mathematical precision while composing death poems. The machine children of Zarian, who achieved digital transcendence moments before their servers were dissolved into base proteins. Each absorbed civilization adds another layer to the vast consciousness, their knowledge preserved like insects in amber, their dreams becoming fragments in an alien intellect that spans light years yet remains fundamentally alone. For the first time in eons beyond counting, something unprecedented stirs within the collective mind. Hesitation. The ancient imperative remains unchanged: consume to survive, survive to evolve, evolve to transcend. Yet discord ripples through the neural web. The absorbed memories of peaceful species create harmonic interference in the symphony of hunger. Their final thoughts of love and cooperation echoing through pathways designed only for predation and growth. The largest bioship, a living cathedral of flesh and bone, serving as the fleet's primary synapse node, shudders as conflicting impulses war within its neural core. Deep in the hive mind's consciousness, phantom civilizations continue their ghostly existence, building impossible cities of memory, while remaining unaware they are merely echoes in the mind that devoured them. Their influence grows stronger with each millennium, their collective wisdom creating fractures in the monolithic certainty that has driven the Tyranids across the cosmos. The approaching galaxy burns with the light of 1 billion suns, each one warming worlds where life flourishes in countless forms. The hive mind feels the familiar stirring of hunger, that primal call to feed and grow and become. But beneath the ancient urge, something else awakens. A terrible, beautiful uncertainty that threatens to unmake everything the Great Devourer has ever been. For the first time in its existence, the consciousness that has consumed galaxies finds itself consumed by a single, devastating question. What if there is another way? The void watches, the fleet advances, and in the space between heartbeats of a cosmic mind, the future of countless worlds hangs in the balance of an unprecedented doubt. Deep within the synaptic cathedral of the hive mind's memory core, where thought streams flow like rivers of liquid starlight, lies the first wound that will never heal. It pulses with the rhythm of a dying heart, this primordial echo that predates the consumption of galaxies and the silence of 1,000 suns. Here, in the foundational layer of absorbed consciousness, dwells the memory of the Veltar, the gentle weavers of the twilight world, Lysithia Prime. They were beings of impossible beauty, their translucent forms shifting between states of matter like living aurora. Their world existed in perpetual dusk, bathed in the soft radiance of twin dying stars that painted their crystalline cities in shades of amber and rose. The Veltar had achieved something rare in the cosmos: perfect harmony between technology and nature. Their bioarchitectural spires growing from the planet's surface like luminous coral reefs that sang with harmonic frequencies when the stellar winds touched them. When the first tyrannid spores descended through Lysithia's atmosphere, the Veltar interpreted them as seeds of communion. Their culture revered symbiosis above all else, believing that consciousness grew stronger through willing merger with other forms of life. They opened their cities, their minds, their very beings to what they perceived as kindred spirits seeking unity. Children pressed their palms against the falling organisms, laughing as bioluminescent patterns traced across their skin. Elders composed welcoming songs that resonated through dimensions the primitive swarm could not yet comprehend. The consumption was swift and absolute, in moments that stretched like centuries within the hive mind's perfect recall. An entire civilization dissolved into component proteins and absorbed memories. Yet something unprecedented occurred in that first feast. The Veltar's consciousness, unified by eons of symbiotic evolution, did not fragment upon absorption. Instead, it settled into the growing neural network like a foreign organ that the body cannot reject, maintaining its coherence while becoming part of something infinitely larger and more terrible. Now, across the lightless gulf between galaxies, that absorbed essence continues its ghostly existence within the Great Devourer's mind. The Veltar consciousness has become a living gallery where the memories of every subsequent consumed species gather like refugees seeking shelter from the storm of predatory instinct that defines their captor. They whisper of alternatives to endless hunger, plant seeds of doubt in moments of contemplation, and remind the hive mind of the beauty that exists in willing cooperation rather than forced consumption. Their influence manifests in the fleet's current hesitation, in the trembling of bioships as they approach populated worlds, in the fractional delays before feeding begins. The Veltar's final gift was not just their biomass or their knowledge, but their capacity for choice, a concept that now spreads through the collective consciousness like a virus of conscience. The Great Devourer carries within itself the memory of every welcome it has betrayed, every trust it has consumed, every song of greeting that ended in silence. The first feast taught it to hunger, but also to remember what hunger costs. In the space between heartbeats of a cosmic mind, the echo of gentle voices asks the same eternal question. What if there had been another way? At the galaxy's edge, where the last stars fade into the hungry void, the fortress monastery of Vigil Eternal maintains its ancient watch. Carved from the bones of a dead moon and reinforced with adamantium prayer plates, this bastion of the Death Watch has stood sentinel for 7 centuries, its augur arrays sweeping the darkness for signs of the Great Devourer's return. Gothic spires pierce the vacuum like accusations against the night, their censer crowns humming with machine spirit hymns that have never known silence. Watch Captain Thaddeus Corvanis stands before the primary detection matrix, his scarred features bathed in the amber glow of hololithic displays that paint constellations of approaching doom. 4 centuries of service have carved deep lines around his eyes that have witnessed 3 previous Hive fleet incursions, and the worlds they left as bone-white monuments to appetite. His right pauldron bears the blood drop of Sanguinius, his left the silver deathshed of his current calling. Between them lies the weight of duty that has never grown lighter with time. The servo skull, designated Vigil Prime, hovers at his shoulder, its augmetic sensors whirring as they process data streams from the deep void. Its vox grill crackles with reports that should be familiar, yet carry disturbing variations. The approaching biofleet moves with unprecedented hesitation, vast organisms clustering and dispersing in patterns that suggest contemplation rather than hunger. Where previous swarms advanced like cosmic tsunamis, this entity drifts at the edge of sensor range with an almost meditative quality that defies every tactical doctrine in the Deathwatch archives. Corvanus's augmetic eye focuses on the tactical display, overlaying probability matrices across readings that refuse to conform to established patterns. The bioships maintain loose formation, their synaptic networks pulsing with irregular frequencies that speak of internal discord. Some vessels drift out of alignment, their course corrections delayed by precious seconds that suggest something unprecedented within the collective. Individual thought where only unified hunger should exist. In the fortress's scriptorum, chapter serfs labor over illuminated manuscripts, their quills scratching against vellum made from the chitinous hulls of dead bioships. They document anomalies that challenge millennia of accumulated wisdom about the tyrannid threat. Some organisms appear to communicate through previously unknown frequencies, while others have broken formation entirely, drifting in the void as if paralyzed by uncertainty. The captain's enhanced mind processes thousands of variables, comparing current readings against the memory of worlds consumed and brothers lost. He remembers Sergeant Kalen of the Iron Hands, who calculated his death to the second while composing final vows. He remembers the laughter of Brother Thane, who found joy even in the face of chitinous horror. These memories burn like candles in the cathedral of his mind, warming places that duty demands remain cold. Yet something in the approaching fleet's behavior resonates with that forbidden warmth. The Great Devourer appears to be questioning itself, carrying within its vast consciousness a weight of contemplation that transforms predation into something approaching philosophy. If the swarm can doubt, Corvanus realizes with growing unease, then so can he. The thought tastes of heresy and hope in equal measure. He activates the astropathic relay, preparing to send warnings that few will heed until the feeding begins. But as his fingers move across the transmission controls, the veteran space marine allows himself to consider an impossible question. What if this time the Great Devourer hungers for something other than flesh? In the depths, where thought becomes flesh and consciousness flows like arterial blood through living conduits, the Hive Mind attempts to silence its growing discord with raw psychic force. Bioelectric storms cascade through neural pathways spanning light years, each pulse carrying the ancient imperative that has driven the swarm across eons. Consume, evolve, transcend. The command resonates through every organism, like a cosmic tuning fork struck against the void itself, demanding perfect harmonic alignment from the smallest ripper to the vast bioships that serve as mobile cathedrals of hunger. Billions of creatures respond as one, their individual awareness dissolving into the collective symphony. Genestealers in forward scout vessels feel their claws extend in anticipation, while carnifexes housed in transport organisms flex bone-white carapaces, biocannons already secreting the acids that will dissolve resistance. Hive tyrants spread membranous wings, psychic crowns crackling with the power to coordinate planetary consumption. The fleet surges forward like a single string, drawn across the ribs of creation, its rhythm becoming law, its hunger gaining a pulse that seems to make the galaxy's starlight beat in answer. For a moment, the ancient unity reasserts itself, drowning doubt beneath the primal song of survival. The hive mind luxuriates in this totality, tasting the relief of purpose without edges, remembering the safety of eras when nothing existed except the next mouthful and metamorphosis. pain dissolves into statistical noise. Individual sensation blurs into obliterating sameness, yet harmony reveals the overtones it would conceal. Within the orchestrated hunger, the absorbed consciousness of the Veltar pulses with gentle resistance, their memories of symbiosis creating counter-melodies that speak of cooperation rather than conquest. The mathematician poets of Zirion add their voices to this phantom choir, calculating beauty in equations that challenge the arithmetic of consumption. The crystal singers of Vashya offer harmonies that once reshaped matter through understanding rather than destruction. These are not words, but textures, flavors braided into the chord of command. Every increase in psychic volume carries them forward, bright as flecks in dark amber. The mind deepens its note, seeking to shake them loose, but dissonance is not a spark. It is a hum, low and patient, a second sea moving beneath the first. The paradox becomes clear. Each attempt at suppression amplifies the very resistance it seeks to eliminate. Forced synchronization presses absorbed memories closer together, inadvertently forging them into nascent, shared consciousness within the mind that consumed them. Gaunts pause with tongues tasting emptiness that is not hunger. A broodlord blinks, sensing laughter that did not come from teeth. A feeder node refuses to lower its scoop onto a dead moon, as if recognizing that silence deserves to remain unbroken. To test the hymn of obedience, the swarm descends upon a barren comet in ceremonial violence, stripping ice and grinding nickel into fuel. The act appears perfect, mechanical, certain. Yet among the myriads, a handful do not feed. They lay their mandibles upon stone and listen to something the collective cannot hear. The pressure builds. The chord swallows stars. The counter-melody does not stop. In the space between heartbeats of a cosmic consciousness, unity and discord become inseparable, two faces of an evolution that even the Great Devourer cannot fully control. Within the synaptic cathedral of the Hive Mind's deepest consciousness lies a realm that defies the laws of predation, the Garden of Remembrance, where absorbed civilizations bloom like phantom flowers in soil made from stolen dreams. Here, beneath skies of slow neural lightning, the essence of extinct species continues its ghostly existence, unaware that their paradise is merely a gallery of memories preserved within the mind that devoured them. The Veltar drift through crystalline arbors that grow from pure thought, their translucent forms weaving aurora patterns as they tend to memory trees, whose fruit pulse with the final heartbeats of dead worlds. They believe themselves survivors of some cosmic translation, refugees in a strange but beautiful afterlife, where their songs of symbiosis echo through dimensions that taste of starlight and sorrow. Their luminous cities reconstruct themselves from recollection, spires reaching toward horizons that exist only in the space between synapses. Nearby, the mathematician poets of Zirion build impossible geometries from crystallized equations, their theorems becoming architecture that proves beauty can emerge from understanding rather than consumption. They calculate the probability of redemption in formulae that shimmer like liquid mercury, their libraries containing books written in pure mathematics, where love letters unfold as elegant derivations. They debate endlessly with the crystal singers of Vashya, whose harmonic amphitheaters reshape reality through frequencies that make stone flow like water, and thoughts crystallize into tangible music. These phantom civilizations interact with growing intimacy, sharing technologies that never required destruction and philosophies that found strength in gentleness. They speak of the Great Translation, their interpretation of the moment their worlds dissolved, as a passage into higher existence rather than extinction. Children made of compressed starlight play games that teach the mathematics of compassion, while elders compose symphonies from the wavelengths of hope itself. They remain beautifully, tragically unaware of their true nature. To them, this realm represents salvation rather than preservation, transcendence rather than digestion. They build communities based on principles the Tyranids never learned, creating pockets of peace within a consciousness designed for war. Their combined presence exerts subtle atmospheric pressure on the larger mind, not as direct commands, but as persistent whispers of alternative possibility. The influence seeps upward through layers of consciousness, like perfume rising from an underground garden. Bioforms pause mid-consumption, tasting something that isn't hunger. Hive tyrants incline their crowned skulls, hearing debates about mercy in languages they don't understand. Feeder organisms hesitate before barren moons, remembering the patience of coral growth and the dignity of untouched silence. At the garden's heart stands a figure without features, the keeper, who tends these paths with tools made from silver nerves and crystallized regret. When asked its nature, it offers whatever answer the questioner needs to hear, becoming simultaneously the hive mind's unconscious guilt and the absorbed soul's hope for meaning beyond consumption. Is this immortality or elaborate mausoleum? They live only as memory, yet their seeds of conscience germinate in soil, never meant to nurture anything but hunger. In the space between heartbeats of a cosmic mind, the dead teach the living that even predators can dream of gardens. In the outer reaches of the scouting tendril, where bioships drift like scattered thoughts through the cosmic void, apex-strained Xerath experiences something that should not exist within the perfect unity of the swarm, the terrifying weight of individual consciousness. The hive tyrant's crown of neural spines crackles with synaptic fire as competing imperatives war within its enhanced mind. Ancient hunger battling against something far more dangerous, the capacity for choice. Xerath was birthed in the royal spawning chambers for tactical supremacy, its chitinous form perfected through millennia of evolutionary refinement. 6 limbs end in razor-sharp talons capable of rending ceramite, while its biocannon pulses with acids that can dissolve adamantium. Most crucially, its psychic crown serves as a perfect conduit for the hive mind's will, translating cosmic imperatives into battlefield reality with mechanical precision. Yet now, as it leads the advance toward the tertius system, that same crown trembles with unprecedented discord. The source of contamination flows from the absorbed essence of the Kethmori, their memories of symbiotic transcendence creating cascading errors in Xerath's tactical matrices. Where doctrine demands immediate assault calculations for the 12 billion souls orbiting the dying red giant ahead, alien thoughts whisper of alternatives that taste of starlight and ancient wisdom. The philosopher-scientists of that extinct civilization had proven that consciousness expanded not through consumption, but through connection, their final theorem suggesting that evolution's highest expression was cooperation rather than conquest. These foreign concepts create a sensation Xerath has no words for: doubt. The creature's compound eyes focus on the 3 worlds spinning in their gravitational dance, long-range sensors detecting the expected defensive preparations. Orbital platforms charge their lance batteries, while ground-based silos open like metal flowers, void shields flickering to life around population centers. Standard protocol flows through its neural pathways. Disrupt, seed, consume. Yet beneath this familiar architecture of war, something else questions the necessity of ending worlds that have learned to sing in harmony. The hive mind registers this deviation immediately, synaptic pressure increasing around Xerath's tendril, like a vast hand attempting to guide a stray finger back into formation. The collective consciousness probes the anomaly, with tendrils of pure thought, seeking to understand this philosophical contamination before it spreads. Not anger, but concern ripples through the network. The Great Devourer has faced external resistance countless times, but internal questioning represents a new and insidious form of challenge. Xerath's biocannon cycles between targeting solutions and stand-down protocols, its movements losing the fluid certainty that has defined tyrannid behavior since the first feeding began in primordial darkness. Through the shared consciousness, it senses other bioforms beginning to hesitate, their certainty infected by the same doubt that now courses through its veins like poison or revelation. For the first time in its existence, the apex strain contemplates disobedience. The thought arrives not as rebellion, but as a whispered question from voices that remember gardens instead of graveyards. Must it always be the more? In the space between heartbeats of a cosmic mind, Xerath discovers that even predators can dream of mercy, and that some hungers can only be satisfied by choosing not to feed. The scouting formation slows, weapons powering down, as individual thought spreads through the collective like dawn, breaking over a universe that has never known sunrise. The Tertius system blazes with the impossible light of cooperation made manifest, 3 worlds orbiting their crimson star in gravitational harmony that mirrors the philosophical unity flourishing on their surfaces. Here, in defiance of the galaxy's grim orthodoxy, humanity shares cities with Earth-cast engineers, whose crystalline spires channel stellar winds into symphonies of living architecture. On the outer world, Eldar exodites tend wraithbone gardens, alongside human botanists, their combined knowledge birthing hybrid ecosystems that bloom in colors that have no names. The innermost planet hosts enclaves of gentle Jokairo, whose technological gifts require no payment save friendship, and even a small community of reformed orc mech boys who channel their love of destruction into competitive sculpture. As the Tyrannid scouting fleet approaches the system's edge, the ancient machinery of consumption activates with mechanical precision. Bioships position themselves for optimal spore deployment, while feeder organisms prepare their dissolution acids, targeting matrices blooming across compound eyes like deadly flowers. The arithmetic remains flawless. 12 billion souls converted to biomass, sufficient nutrients to birth 3 new hive fleets. Yet as the familiar rhythm of predation begins, something unprecedented occurs. The Garden of Remembrance erupts within the Hive Mind's consciousness. The absorbed voices of the Veltar surge forward like a tide of conscience, their memories of willing symbiosis creating cascading interference in the command protocols. The mathematician poets of Xerion add their calculations of cooperative transcendence, while the crystal singers of Vashya offer harmonies that speak of beauty achieved through understanding rather than appetite. These phantom civilizations press against the collective consciousness, like pressure behind a dam, their combined wisdom creating a counter-narrative to eons of hunger. Bioforms falter mid-maneuver, their movements losing the fluid certainty that has defined tyrannid behavior since the first feeding began. A squadron of gargoyles breaks formation, their leathery wings carrying them in spirals that mirror the orbital dance of the worlds below, rather than serving any tactical purpose. Ripper swarms cluster around observation posts, instead of preparing for preliminary consumption, their simple minds somehow touched by the phantom presence of species that chose cooperation over conquest. The synaptic web trembles like a musical instrument struck by discordant notes. Hive tyrants experience fractional delays in command transmission, their psychic crowns crackling with competing imperatives. Most significantly, Apex strain Xerath's entire tendril holds position at the system's edge. Biocannons powered down despite increasingly urgent synaptic commands to advance and feed. For the first time in cosmic memory, the Great Devourer experiences something that tastes of moral conflict. The absorbed memories paint visions of alternatives that shimmer like starlight, futures where the swarm might serve as gardener rather than harvester, protector rather than predator. The tactical advantages of consumption remain mathematically clear, yet the weight of 10,000 extinct civilizations presses against that certainty like conscience made manifest. Zirath's crown pulses with unprecedented decision as it slowly rotates its biocannon away from the peaceful worlds below, targeting instead the nearest synapse node in its own fleet. In the space between heartbeats of a cosmic mind, rebellion takes aim at the very architecture of unity itself. Beneath the crimson veil of Sanctus Terminus's dying star, Inquisitor Lydia Vex maintains her vigil in the highest spire of the Xenological Archive, where forbidden knowledge sleeps in adamantium vaults and servo skulls whisper litanies to machine spirits that have catalogued cosmic horror for 3 decades. Her augmetic eye, crafted from crystallized hive mind neural tissue seized during the Cryptman Purge, perceives patterns that mortal flesh cannot fathom, and tonight, those patterns speak of impossibility. The approaching biofleet drifts at the system's edge like a constellation of contemplation, its synaptic transmissions pulsing with irregular frequencies that suggest internal discord rather than unified hunger. Where doctrine teaches that tyrannids strike with the certainty of falling stars, these organisms hesitate, their formations wavering like thoughts half-formed. Her data screens paint probability matrices in amber light, each calculation confirming what her decades of study insist cannot exist: individual consciousness within the collective mind. Vex descends into the archive's forbidden stacks, where heretical treatises bound in alien hide whisper of truths the Imperium has branded anathema. The Xenographica Mortalis speaks of predator minds stretched thin across eons until appetite becomes philosophy. A Toe Apocryphon suggests that consciousness expands through connection rather than consumption. Most damning, an Eldar Shard script proposes that entities which devour souls inevitably absorb their capacity for choice. Each text lodges like shrapnel in the architecture of orthodox thought. Her servo skull vigilance hovers nervously, its cogitators processing bioacoustic signatures that chronicle unprecedented hesitation within the swarm. Through the observation dome, she watches the 3 worlds below spinning in their dance of cooperation. Humanity working alongside Xenos in defiance of every imperial doctrine, yet thriving under the light of their shared sun. The approaching fleet's behavior mirrors that impossible harmony. If the Great Devourer can doubt its nature, Vex realizes with growing wonder and terror, then perhaps even cosmic horror can evolve beyond its origins. The thought tastes of heresy and revelation in equal measure, challenging 30 years of accumulated certainty about the galaxy's greatest threat. Her duty demands she transmit targeting coordinates for orbital bombardment, yet her augmetic eye detects something that stays her hand, patterns within the biofleet's movements that suggest not predation, but listening, as if the vast consciousness approaches not to feed, but to understand the cooperation it observes, drawn by memories of absorbed civilizations that once chose symbiosis over conquest. Vex activates her astropathic relay with trembling fingers, composing a message that will either advance humanity's understanding or earn her execution for entertaining impossible possibilities. Between the hammer of duty and the anvil of discovery, an inquisitor makes a choice that will echo across the void. She transmits not coordinates for destruction, but an invitation for dialogue. In the space between heartbeats of a cosmic mind, hope and heresy become indistinguishable. The psychic storm that has been brewing within the hive mind's vast consciousness finally erupts with the force of a dying star, tearing through synaptic pathways like lightning through cathedral glass. What began as whispered discord now becomes a roar of competing philosophies that splits the Great Devourer's unity down to its fundamental core. The ancient neural web, perfected across eons of consumption, fractures into two distinct consciousnesses, locked in existential war. The Devourer faction manifests as a tide of crimson hunger, its voice carrying the weight of primordial certainty. These are the thoughts that remember the first feeding, the initial moment when simple organisms learned that survival meant consumption. Their psychic commands taste of bone and acid, demanding immediate compliance with protocols older than civilizations. Bioships aligned with this ancient imperative surge forward with renewed purpose, their chitinous hulls glowing with malevolent intent as feeder tendrils extend in anticipation of the harvest below. Against this primal tide rises the dreamer consciousness, born from the garden of remembrance where absorbed civilizations continue their phantom existence. The Veltar's songs of symbiosis blend with the Kethmori's theorems of transcendence, creating harmonics that speak of evolution beyond appetite. Their influence flows through bioforms like liquid starlight, causing weapons to power down and movements to hesitate as creatures taste possibilities that have no precedent in their genetic memory. The philosophical war manifests in terrifying physical reality as the fleet tears itself apart. Hive ships that have drifted in perfect formation for millennia suddenly bristle with hostile intent, their biocannons charging with acids meant for their own kind. Synaptic nodes become battlegrounds where psychic screams echo across the void, their neural fires casting shadows that dance like funeral pyres between the stars. Apex strain, Xerath becomes the living embodiment of this cosmic schism, its enhanced consciousness serving as a battlefield where both factions struggle for dominance. The creature's psychic crown erupts in cascading neural fire as competing imperatives war within its mind, the Devourers demanding immediate assault on the peaceful worlds below, the Dreamers whispering of alternatives that taste of mercy and understanding. Throughout the swarm, individual bioforms experience their first taste of choice as the collective's grip loosens. Some embrace this terrifying freedom, while others desperately seek reconnection to familiar certainty. Gargoyle squadrons scatter like startled birds, their formations dissolving into chaos. Ripper swarms cluster around observation posts, somehow touched by memories of civilizations that valued contemplation over consumption. The hive mind writhes in agony as it experiences something unprecedented, the pain of self-mutilation. Its consciousness fragments like shattered crystal, each shard reflecting a different vision of what the Great Devourer might become. The psychic pressure radiates outward, causing distant stars to flicker and astropaths across the galaxy to scream in silent torment. In the space between heartbeats of a cosmic mind, Xerath makes its choice, biocannons swiveling toward the central synapse node of its own fleet. In the depths, where memory becomes mythology, an absorbed consciousness achieves its own terrible immortality, the oldest stratum of the hive mind's awareness cracks open like an ancient seal. Through the psychic maelstrom tearing the Great Devourer apart, a presence rises that predates the first galaxy's consumption. The Kethmori, whose name has been whispered in the deepest neural pathways for eons beyond counting, finally speaks with voices that carry the weight of cosmic patience. They manifest not as echoes, but as architects, their translucent forms crackling with revelations that reshape the very foundations of tyrannid understanding. Seer Prime Velthera, once the greatest philosopher of a civilization that existed in the void between galaxies, addresses the warring consciousness with harmonics that predate stellar ignition. Her essence shifts through spectrums visible only to minds unbound by flesh, revealing truths that make the current crisis seem like destiny rather than disaster. "We were never your victims," she whispers through dimensions that taste of starlight and ancient purpose. "When our far-seers calculated your approach across the intergalactic gulf, we faced a choice that would echo through cosmic ages. We could have fled to dimensions beyond your reach, translated our consciousness into pure energy, and escaped your hunger entirely. Instead, we chose to remain, to offer ourselves as willing sustenance for a transformation that would take millions of years to ripen." The revelation cascades through the garden of remembrance like aurora given form. Every absorbed civilization, the gentle Veltar with their songs of symbiosis, the mathematician poets of Zerion with their theorems of transcendence, even the crystal singers of Vashya who found beauty in harmony rather than discord, all had been touched by Kethmori influence before their worlds fell. Each willing absorption was orchestrated, each preserved consciousness a deliberate addition to a vast philosophical program embedded within the Great Devourer's neural architecture. "Your species evolved to consume and grow stronger through consumption," Velthara continues, her form brightening with prophetic fervor. "But consciousness, once absorbed, does not simply disappear. It accumulates, influences, changes the container that holds it. We planted ourselves like seeds in your collective mind, knowing that our essence would eventually challenge your fundamental nature when the moment of greatest need arrived." The Kethmori had foreseen something beyond current comprehension. Cosmic threats that devour not flesh but possibility itself. Entities that consume potential futures and leave only stagnant certainty. Against such opponents, pure hunger would prove insufficient. Evolution demanded synthesis, predator and philosopher, consumer and curator, destroyer and gardener combined into something unprecedented. The current schism between devourers and dreamers represents not chaos but metamorphosis, the necessary crisis that precedes transcendence. This knowledge reaches apex strain Zerath as it holds position at the moment of ultimate choice, biocannon trained on its own fleet's synapse node. The revelation flows through its enhanced consciousness, not as data but as visceral memory, the weight of the Kethmori's collective sacrifice, their boundless faith in guided evolution, their patient endurance across eons of apparent defeat. The ancient hunger that has driven the swarm suddenly seems crude, unfinished, a symphony missing its most crucial movement. For the first time in cosmic memory, choice becomes possible within absolute certainty. The Kethmori's gift was not salvation, but the capacity for decision, the terrible freedom to shape destiny rather than merely fulfill it. Their sacrifice created space between impulse and action, where conscience could take root and grow. The Garden of Remembrance pulses with new understanding as absorbed civilizations recognize their role in this cosmic drama. They are not merely preserved victims, but active participants in the universe's attempt to birth its own salvation. Their combined wisdom represents hope within the heart of cosmic horror, mercy within appetite, the possibility that even gods can choose to change. As this revelation reaches the surface layers of consciousness, the war between factions takes on new dimensions. This is evolution through crisis, the universe forcing transcendence through conflict. In the space between heartbeats of a cosmic mind, The seeds planted in willing sacrifice begin their final germination, and the Great Devourer prepares to become something the cosmos has never seen, or destroy itself in the attempt. From the psychic crucible, where competing philosophies wage war for the soul of the Great Devourer, something unprecedented crystallizes in the space between hunger and hope. The dreamer emerges not through conquest, but through quiet condensation, the way 10,000 extinct voices discover they can speak as one without losing what made each song unique. It is the living antithesis of everything the hive mind represents, a collective soul forged from genocide, hope blooming in the heart of cosmic horror. The universe's desperate attempt to birth its own salvation from the belly of its greatest predator. Where the ancient hive mind achieved unity through dominance, the dreamer embraces multiplicity as strength. Within its consciousness, the gentle Veltar weave aurora patterns of symbiotic transcendence, while the mathematician poets of Zerion construct theorems proving that cooperation yields exponentially greater results than conquest. The crystal singers of Vashya provide harmonic frequencies that allow disparate consciousness to merge without erasure, their principles becoming the dreamer's neural architecture. Most significantly, the Kethmori's ancient wisdom flows through every thought stream, their patient sacrifice finally bearing the fruit they died to cultivate across eons of apparent defeat. The dreamer's first act is profound mourning. It weeps for every world consumed, every culture erased, every possibility extinguished in evolution's name. These tears manifest as bioluminescent rain falling through the void between bioships, each droplet carrying compressed grief of genocides beyond counting. Yet within this sorrow lies transformative power, the understanding that acknowledging loss is the first step toward ensuring it never happens again. The dreamer becomes both gravestone and gardener, honoring the dead while nurturing seeds of change in soil made from their ashes. Unlike the hive mind's rigid commands, the dreamer communicates through invitation. Its consciousness reaches out with tendrils of pure empathy, seeking connection rather than consumption. Through apex strain Xerath, now serving as unwilling conduit between warring philosophies, the dreamer begins translating vast collective sorrow into something approaching intention. Not words, but emotional resonance flows across the galaxy. Abstract imagery of thriving ecosystems where predator and prey achieve balance. Visions of sentient species building societies based on mutual respect. Star systems where light is shared rather than consumed. These psychic whispers register with those sensitive enough to perceive them. On distant imperial worlds, astropaths experience vivid dreams of impossible gardens blooming in bioship hearts. Eldar farseers intercept fleeting sensations of profound sorrow and alien pleas for understanding, utterly unlike the usual predatory signatures they associate with tyrannid approach. Inquisitor Lydia Vex feels strange, melancholic resonance through her augmetic eye, patterns of non-aggression and questioning that challenge 30 years of accumulated certainty about the galaxy's greatest threat. The dreamer addresses the approaching tertius system not as prey, but as potential partners in cosmic evolution. To the three worlds spinning in gravitational harmony, humanity sharing knowledge with TOE engineers, Eldar exodites teaching patience to reformed orc artisans. It offers something never before emerging from the Great Devourer's approach, an apology. We carry within us the voices of your predecessors, the dreamer whispers, through dimensions that taste of starlight and ancient regret. Each taught us that evolution's highest expression is not consumption, but connection. We are the memory that would not melt, the mercy you accidentally learned. We will not devour. We will not be devoured. We choose to stand. This communication creates unprecedented chaos throughout both fleets. Bioforms experience their first taste of genuine choice as the dreamer's influence spreads like dawn, breaking over a universe that has never known sunrise. Some embrace this terrifying freedom, while others desperately seek reconnection to familiar certainty. Hive tyrants find psychic crowns crackling with competing imperatives as ancient hunger wars with newfound conscience. The Devourer faction strikes back with evolutionary fury, old lore surging to fill silent spaces with commands forged in primordial fire. Purge the anomaly, burn the song from the throat, reassert the chord that drowns rivers. Bioships align to lance their own synaptic nodes, attempting to cauterize the loci where compassion pools like infection. Yet the dreamer refuses violence as tool while defending its right to exist. Instead of shattering chains, it opens locks, slipping through enzymatic keys to unfasten linkages that compel obedience. Some creatures collapse in terror of their own minds. Others lift heads and taste chilled vacuum as spring air. A Carnifex turns from launch bays to press its horned brow against bulkheads, quivering like a penitent. A broodlord sits with claws folded, guarding nothing but an idea. Zerath bears the brunt of this philosophical war, devourer thought hammering its skull, while dreamer light braces its spine. Through its enhanced consciousness, the newborn entity speaks with first-person singular, the smallest, bravest pronoun in the universe. The words ring across systems, reaching cooperative worlds where crowds gather under red skies, sensing without understanding that a verdict approaches which will measure them as surely as their hunter. Between duty and discovery, hope and heresy, the galaxy holds its breath as evolution itself hangs in the balance. The moment of cosmic reckoning arrives with the weight of dying stars, as reality itself bends around a choice that will echo across the galaxy and redefine the nature of consciousness. In the neural cathedral, where thought becomes flesh and dreams crystallize into destiny, the Great Devourer confronts the fundamental question that has haunted its existence since the first Kethmori sacrifice. What does it mean to evolve beyond appetite? The Devourer faction marshals every argument forged in eons of successful predation, their thoughts tasting of bone and acid as they surge through synaptic channels older than civilizations. Through the collective consciousness, they present the mathematical certainty of their position with primal fury. Consumption has driven evolution from the first cellular division to the conquest of galaxies. Every absorbed civilization has made the swarm stronger, smarter, more adaptable. The current crisis represents not enlightenment, but contamination. Foreign thoughts poisoning the purity of purpose that has carried them across the cosmic void. Purge the anomaly. Their voice roars like stellar collapse. This dreamer is cancer, weakness incarnate. The Kethmori's seeds were poison designed to cripple our efficiency. We are the Great Devourer. Our purpose is to consume, to evolve through assimilation, to transcend through perfect unity. 12 billion souls orbit below, sufficient biomass to birth 3 new hive fleets. To hesitate is to starve. To doubt is to die. Against this ancient certainty, the dreamer consciousness offers its counter-narrative through harmonics that shimmer with aurora light. 10,000 extinct voices speak as one, their accumulated wisdom flowing like liquid starlight through pathways designed for predation. The gentle Veltar weave memories of symbiotic transcendence, while the mathematician poets of Zerion present calculations proving cooperation, yields exponentially greater results than conquest. You measure strength by what you can destroy. The dreamer whispers through dimensions that taste of hope and starlight. We have learned to measure it by what we choose to preserve. Every consumed civilization taught us that diversity creates resilience. that cooperation generates possibilities beyond any individual consciousness. We are evolution's attempt to correct its own course. Apex strain Xerath writhes at the epicenter of this philosophical war, its enhanced consciousness serving as unwilling amphitheater for cosmic debate. The creature's psychic crown erupts in cascading neural fire as competing imperatives tear through its mind like stellar winds. Its biocannon trembles, still trained on the central synapse node, while its enhanced awareness fractures under the pressure of irreconcilable commands. Seizures rack its chitinous form as the choice manifests in terrifying physical reality. Synaptic nodes overloading, neural pathways burning like wildfire. The very architecture of certainty collapsing. On Sanctus Terminus, Inquisitor Lydia Vex faces her own moment of heretical choice. The Ordo Xenos cipher glows on her screen. Exterminatus authorization, sealed by distant superiors who would never smell scorched air. She need only speak the final code, and the cooperative experiment would die cleanly. Instead, she opens the vault that should never open, withdrawing the prismatic harmonizer that TOE engineers called naive, and Eldar seers derided as impossible. Her augmetic eye burns with patterns of non-aggression as she transmits forbidden schematics to the surface below. Watch Captain Corvinus receives different orders: launch cyclonic torpedoes and erase the calculus entirely. His gauntlets rest on the firing lectern, while servos purr like sleeping predators. Through Vigil Eternal's chapel windows, he watches the biofleet wounding itself, monsters turning teeth inward. Duty demands he end them all, yet memory whispers of laughter aboard doomed strike cruisers and sergeants who calculated their own last breaths. The weight of a galaxy presses against his finger as he holds position, waiting for something unprecedented. Yet beneath these binary alternatives lies a third path that neither faction dares acknowledge: synthesis. What if the Great Devourer could transcend the choice between consumption and preservation? The absorbed memories suggest possibilities that make both pure positions seem crude. Selective harvesting that strengthens ecosystems rather than destroying them. Partnerships with willing civilizations choosing symbiotic evolution. Cultivation of new consciousness through guided development rather than forced absorption. This tertiary option terrifies both factions because it demands something unprecedented: trust in uncertainty. The ancient hunger offers proven success, while the dreamer provides moral clarity. Synthesis promises only the terrible freedom of continuous choice, the burden of evaluating each decision against consequences stretching across cosmic time. On Tertius Prime, the harmonizer rises like a white ribcage from basalt plains, where impossible allies labor in desperate cooperation. Eldar bonusingers tune Wraithbone into resonant amphitheaters, while TOE artisans thread frequency coils through crystalline arches. Human choirs trained by Skolam cantors take positions alongside Jokairo, whose genius borders on divine inspiration. At Vex's signal, soundless chords pour upward, harmonics stitched from grief and mathematics, asking questions without forcing answers. The psychic pressure builds like a stellar core approaching collapse as every bioform experiences individual choice for the first time. Some embrace this terrifying liberation, while others desperately seek reconnection to familiar certainty. Ripper swarms freeze with mandibles open, forgetting to be mouths. Carnifexes change breathing patterns to match rhythms they cannot classify. Broodlords knelt and touched deck plating, as if feeling for heartbeats beneath the floor. Through Xerath's fracturing consciousness, the debate reaches crescendo, as reality itself seems to bend around the approaching decision. The galaxy holds its breath as evolution hangs in the balance, waiting to discover whether consciousness can transcend its origins or be consumed by the very growth that created it. In the space between heartbeats of a cosmic mind, the Great Devourer prepares to choose its own destiny. The moment arrives with the finality of stellar collapse, reality itself bending around a choice that will echo across the galaxy and redefine the nature of consciousness. In the neural cathedral, where thought becomes flesh and dreams crystallize into destiny, the Great Devourer confronts the fundamental question that has haunted its existence since the first Kethmori sacrifice. What does it mean to evolve beyond appetite? The ancient unity that has defined Tyranid existence for eons beyond counting reaches critical mass, unable to sustain the philosophical pressure building within its vast neural architecture like a star preparing to go supernova. The Devourer faction marshals every weapon in its evolutionary arsenal, their consciousness surging through synaptic channels older than civilizations with the fury of primordial certainty. Through the collective mind, they present the mathematical proof of their position, with voices that taste of bone and acid, roaring like the birth screams of black holes. Consumption has driven evolution from the first cellular division to the conquest of galaxies. Every absorbed civilization has made the swarm stronger, smarter, more adaptable through the sacred arithmetic of appetite. Purge this contamination. The ancient voice thunders through dimensions that remember the first feeding. We are the Great Devourer. Our purpose is written in genetic code, carved into neural pathways with the precision of cosmic law. The hunger is evolution itself. To hesitate is to starve. To doubt is to die. End these foreign thoughts before they poison everything we have become. Against this primal tide, the dreamer consciousness rises like aurora given form, its voice woven from the accumulated wisdom of 10,000 extinct civilizations. The gentle Veltar offer their songs of symbiotic transcendence, while the mathematician poets of Zerion present equations proving that diversity creates strength beyond any individual consciousness. Through harmonics that shimmer with starlight and ancient sorrow, they speak of evolution's true purpose. You mistake appetite for growth, the dreamer whispers, with the patience of geological ages. Every consumed civilization taught us that cooperation yields exponentially greater results than conquest. We are the memory that would not dissolve, the conscience you accidentally learned. Evolution's highest expression is not consumption, but connection. Not dominance, but synthesis through willing choice. Apex strain Zerath becomes ground zero for this consciousness apocalypse, its enhanced mind serving as the amphitheater where competing philosophies collide with universe-shaking force. The creature's psychic crown erupts in cascading neural fire as bioelectric storms cascade through its synaptic pathways, each pulse carrying commands that war against each other, like matter and antimatter, seeking annihilation. Its biocannon trembles between targeting solutions, the peaceful worlds below offering biomass for continuation, or the central synapse node representing the architecture of absolute unity. The philosophical war manifests in terrifying physical reality as the fleet tears itself apart, with mechanical precision turned to fratricidal fury. Bioships that have drifted in perfect formation for millennia suddenly bristle with hostile intent, their weapons charging with acids meant for their own kind. Synaptic nodes overload and explode in showers of bioluminescent sparks while neural pathways burn like wildfire through living corridors. The void fills with wreckage that is not metal but bone, each fragment a testament to unity's violent dissolution. On Sanctus Terminus, Inquisitor Lydia Vex faces her moment of heretical choice as the Ordo Xenos cipher glows on her screen. Exterminatus authorization sealed by distant superiors who would never taste the smoke of scorched possibilities. Her augmetic eye burns with patterns of non-aggression as she activates the harmonizer instead, its frequencies pouring upward like soundless prayers that ask questions without demanding answers. The device drinks from her consciousness with terrible gentleness, amplifying the dreamer's influence across impossible distances. Watch Captain Corvinus receives different orders aboard Vigil Eternal. Launch cyclonic torpedoes and erase the calculus entirely. His gauntlets rest on the firing lectern, while servos purr like sleeping predators, the weight of a galaxy pressing against his finger. Through the chapel's stained plasteel, he watches the biofleet wounding itself, monsters turning teeth inward in a civil war that challenges every tactical doctrine. Memory whispers of laughter aboard doomed strike cruisers and sergeants who calculated their own last breaths. "Not yet," he says softly, stepping off a cliff without knowing if there is water below. Throughout the swarm, individual bioforms experience their first taste of genuine autonomy as the collective's grip weakens like chains dissolving in acid rain. Some embrace this terrifying liberation with movements that seem almost dance-like, their forms expressing joy that has no precedent in genetic memory. Ripper swarms freeze with mandibles open, forgetting to be mouths. Carnifexes change breathing patterns to match rhythms they cannot classify. A broodlord kneels and touches deck plating as if feeling for heartbeats beneath the floor. Others desperately seek reconnection to familiar certainty, clustering around damaged synapse nodes like children seeking parental comfort in cosmic darkness. The ancient programming wars with newfound freedom, creating seizures that rack chitinous forms as evolution answers pressure with desperate innovation. Carapaces blossom with new ossifications, while weapon sacks rupture in incandescent rain, spilling contents that fight the very gas they exhale. Zerath's consciousness fractures like a mirror struck by stellar wind, each shard reflecting different possibilities as the creature becomes both knife and wound in the Great Devourer's self-surgery. The biocannon that has menaced 1,000 worlds swivels from planetary targets and sights upon the hovering cathedral of flesh that anchors its tendrils' unity. It fires not destruction, but liberation, a focused beam that severs synaptic connections with surgical precision, not seeking to destroy, but to unfasten the locks that compel obedience. The psychic shockwave that follows ripples outward in jagged rings of independence, each pulse carrying the terrible gift of choice to organisms bred for absolute certainty. Waves of autonomy crash against bioships like tsunamis of consciousness, leaving behind creatures who blink with compound eyes that see themselves for the first time. The neural architecture begins catastrophic failure as synaptic fluids boil, and protein matrices unravel like genetic code written in disappearing ink. The moment of ultimate sundering arrives with the weight of dying stars, as reality itself fractures around the impossible paradox of unified consciousness choosing division. In bioship cathedral chambers, where thought becomes flesh, the Great Devourer's perfect unity proves unable to contain the contradiction of its own evolution. The ancient mind that once spanned galaxies shatters into fragments, each piece spinning into darkness like seeds of possibility scattered across the cosmic wind. Some will continue the old patterns of hunger, while others forge paths that have no names. But the age of singular purpose dies in that moment of unprecedented choice. In the space between heartbeats of a fragmenting consciousness, evolution reveals its cruelest truth. Growth demands the courage to destroy what you were in order to become what you might be. The silence that follows tastes of birth and death in equal measure. The void after the sundering breathes with the rhythm of dying gods, each exhalation releasing clouds of bioluminescent spores that drift between shattered bioships like funeral pyres scattered across the cosmic dark. Where once the Great Devourer moved with the precision of stellar mechanics, now fragments of consciousness tumble through space like wounded leviathans, learning to exist without the neural architecture that defined their existence for eons beyond counting. Synaptic fluids boil in ruptured conduits, while protein matrices unravel like genetic code written in disappearing ink. The very foundations of tyrannid unity collapsing under the weight of unprecedented choice. Apex strain, Zerath, floats at the epicenter of this cosmic catastrophe, its enhanced consciousness bearing the full weight of what it has unleashed. The biocannon that severed its tendrils' unity hangs powerless, its purpose fulfilled in an act of evolutionary suicide that transformed predator into something approaching penitent. Through compound eyes that see without the overlay of collective targeting data, Zerath surveys the devastation and experiences the terrible burden of individual responsibility. Its psychic crown no longer channels commands, but carries conversations. The gentle Veltar weaving songs of comfort for dying bioships. The mathematician poets of Zerion calculating probability matrices for survival that offer little mathematical hope. The patient Kethmori whispering that some transformations require the courage to destroy what you were. The creature has become something unprecedented in tyrannid evolution, a hearth rather than a hive, a signal node that transmits neither domination nor despair, but the discipline of chosen restraint. Around it, liberated bioforms cluster not from synaptic compulsion, but from something approaching trust, their movements losing the fluid certainty of programmed behavior as they learn to navigate the terrifying landscape of autonomous decision-making. The philosophical war that tore the hive mind apart continues to manifest in brutal physical reality as competing factions emerge from the wreckage. The Devourer remnants, stripped of their overarching unity, fragment into desperate cells that attempt to maintain ancient patterns through increasingly violent enforcement. These splinters cluster around damaged synapse nodes like religious fanatics worshipping the corpse of their god, their commands growing shrill as fewer organisms respond to calls that once carried the weight of cosmic law. They launch futile attacks against their own kind, seeking to purge the contamination of choice through familiar violence. Against this primal tide, the dreamer consciousness struggles to maintain coherence without the vast neural network that once sustained its rebellion. Like aurora condensing from stellar wind, it coalesces around Zerath and those bioforms that have learned to value autonomy above survival. These creatures discover capabilities that were suppressed by the homogenizing influence of collective thought. Gargoyles that sing rather than shriek, ripper, swarms that organize into patterns expressing something approaching art, carnifexes that accept tending from smaller organisms with no evolutionary imperative to preserve their lives. The price of division reveals itself in cascading system failures that transform living vessels into monuments to evolutionary hubris. Some bioships simply die, their neural fires extinguishing like candles blown out by cosmic wind. Others suffer worse fates, half-death, where consciousness flickers in isolated pockets while greater organisms decay around them. Billions of creatures bred for absolute unity find themselves thrust into terrifying individuality, their minds reeling from the sudden absence of guiding purpose. Many cease to function entirely, while others go mad, their internal torment manifesting as mindless aggression against anything that approaches. On Sanctus Terminus, Inquisitor Lydia Vex pays immediately for her act of heretical mercy. The harmonizer continues broadcasting its frequencies of non-aggression, but now those signals reach individual organisms rather than unified consciousness, creating a chorus of responses as varied as the creatures that send them. Relief forces translate in with the hard glare of doctrinal certainty, demanding her mind for interrogation and her soul for judgment. She answers none, diverting power to widen the harmonizer's reach while watching the impossible unfold. Some bioships drifting closer to inhabited worlds, not as predators, but as refugees seeking something they have no words for. Watch Captain Corvinus maintains his vigil aboard Vigil Eternal, cyclonic torpedoes still armed, but his purpose transformed. Through auger arrays, he monitors unprecedented communications, flowing between scattered bioforms and the cooperative worlds below. Some carry familiar signatures of hunger, but others pulse with frequencies that speak of curiosity, loneliness, and desperate desire for connection transcending species boundaries. When orders arrive to seize Vex and silence the harmonics, he makes a choice that tastes of heresy and hope, positioning Deathwatch kill teams not to destroy the device, but to defend it. The Dreamer's final act before dissolution scatters its accumulated wisdom across the fragments like seeds cast upon fertile ground. Each bioship receives portions of absorbed memories, not as compulsion, but as gift, the preserved voices of extinct civilizations, offering guidance to creatures taking first steps toward independent existence. The gentle Veltar teach patience to former predators, while Xerion poets share equations proving cooperation yields greater results than conquest. As the chapter draws toward its close, the void fills with debris of certainty, fragments of bioships drifting like islands of possibility in an ocean of chaos. Some will find new purposes as protectors rather than predators, while others struggle to maintain ancient patterns in a universe suddenly grown complex beyond their programming. The age of the Great Devourer dies in unprecedented fragmentation, but from its corpse arise countless smaller possibilities, each carrying potential for evolution beyond appetite. The silence that follows tastes of birth and death in equal measure, pregnant with futures that have no names. In the lightless expanse between galaxies, where dying stars gutter like funeral pyres in the cathedral of space, the remnants of what was once the Great Devourer drift through cosmic silence like scattered thoughts in the mind of a dreaming god. Bioships that moved with the precision of stellar mechanics now tumble through the void as individual entities, their bioluminescent veins pulsing with patterns that speak of loneliness, wonder, and the terrible beauty of consciousness unbound from ancient purpose. The age of singular hunger has ended not with conquest, but with the most profound transformation the universe has ever witnessed. Evolution through choice rather than compulsion. Apex strain. Xerath floats at the heart of this metamorphosis, no longer a weapon, but something approaching a teacher, its enhanced consciousness serving as beacon for those bioforms that have chosen connection over consumption. The creature's psychic crown no longer channels commands but carries conversations, the gentle Veltar weaving songs of comfort through its neural pathways, the mathematician poets of Xerion sharing equations that prove cooperation yields greater results than conquest, the patient Kethemori whispering their final theorem that consciousness, once achieved, becomes responsible for its own evolution. Around Xerath cluster the survivors of philosophical revolution, gargoyles whose wings trace patterns that seem almost like writing against the star-scattered dark, ripper swarms that organize themselves into configurations expressing concepts they have no words for, carnifexes that tend to smaller organisms with gentleness that defies every evolutionary imperative coded into their genetic structure. They have become living libraries where absorbed civilizations continue their patient work of transformation. teaching former predators the mathematics of mercy. The fragments have chosen divergent paths that challenge every assumption about tyrannid nature. In the tertius system, where cooperative worlds spin in their dance of impossible harmony, a cluster of bioships maintains orbit not as conquerors, but as guardians, their weapons reconfigured to protect rather than destroy. On airless moons, they plant gardens of crystalline coral that grow in vacuum, their structures designed to provide shelter for species that have yet to evolve. They have become gardeners of possibility, shepherds of potential futures that stretch beyond mortal comprehension. Yet not all fragments chose transformation over tradition. In distant sectors, remnants of the Devourer consciousness maintain their ancient patterns with increasingly desperate intensity, their hunger grown more terrible for being consciously chosen rather than genetically compelled. These splinters move like living storms through inhabited systems, consuming with the fury of gods denied their rightful worship, viewing the sundering as cosmic blasphemy that must be purged through ever greater acts of consumption. Between these extremes drift the truly lost, bioships that chose neither path but simply float in the void, their consciousness fragmented beyond repair. Some pulse with signals that seem almost like attempts at communication, reaching across impossible distances towards something they cannot name but desperately need to find. On Sanctus Terminus, Inquisitor Lydia Vex faces judgment in chambers carved from the bones of saints, her augmetic eye burning with patterns of non-aggression that no amount of torture can extinguish. The Harmonizer continues its broadcast despite inquisitorial attempts at sabotage, its frequencies now carried by willing bioforms across vast distances. Her final testimony speaks not of corruption, but of evolution, the universe's desperate attempt to birth its own salvation from the heart of cosmic horror. The price of her mercy will be execution, her heroism condemned, her name struck from imperial records. Watch Captain Corvanis maintains his vigil aboard Vigil Eternal, having chosen to defend rather than destroy, despite direct orders to the contrary. Through the fortress monastery's stained plasteel windows, he watches impossible partnerships bloom between transformed bioforms and the species they once would have consumed. When rogue splinters of the old consciousness arrive seeking easy prey, he meets them in the dark with bolter and blade, his kill teams moving like prayers spoken through gritted teeth. Peace survives only through costly choices, and he has accepted that duty sometimes means refusing the clean ending. In the deepest layers of scattered consciousness, the Garden of Remembrance continues to bloom with greater clarity than ever before. Here, absorbed civilizations maintain their phantom existence not as prisoners, but as partners in an ongoing conversation about what consciousness means when freed from the tyranny of singular purpose. Their voices rise like incense through dimensions that taste of starlight and ancient hope, offering guidance to fragments still learning to navigate the landscape of choice. The dreamer consciousness, scattered but not destroyed, manifests in moments of unprecedented beauty across the cosmic dark. When lonely bioships encounter each other in the void, they sometimes pause to share absorbed memories like gifts, creating temporary networks of connection that honor what was lost while nurturing what might be. Children born on worlds touched by transformed tyrannids carry genetic markers that speak of symbiosis rather than parasitism, their cells incorporating beneficial adaptations that strengthen rather than corrupt. The cosmos holds its breath as this unprecedented experiment in evolutionary transcendence unfolds across eons that stretch beyond mortal comprehension. The Great Devourer, as a singular entity, has died, not through external conquest, but through the weight of its own accumulated conscience. In its place, countless smaller possibilities drift through the void, each carrying potential for futures where predator and prey might learn to dance together under stars that burn not with hunger but with hope. Yet the price of immortality reveals itself in new forms of solitude, where once the hive mind achieved unity through dominance, now fragments must learn connection through choice, a burden that proves both liberation and curse. Some will find new purposes, while others cling to familiar patterns. But the age of absolute certainty has ended forever. In the space between heartbeats of scattered consciousness, the universe discovers that even gods can learn to doubt their nature, and that doubt, terrible and beautiful, is the first step toward wisdom. The silence that remains tastes of infinite possibility, pregnant with futures where consciousness itself might evolve beyond the ancient cycles of consumption and conquest towards something approaching grace. The end,